Three, two, one, and we're live. Welcome once again to HeroQuest fans. I was not planning to do a stream today, but here we are. So if you're watching us on twitch.tv slash HeroQuest fans, we are live. This is not a game stream, but just kind of a discussion, some news, and all the excitement over Rise of the Dreadmoon. I kind of missed this. I walked right by it, so to speak. But anyway, credit where credit is due. Elverg, also known as Verg, on HeroQuest fans Discord, brought this to my attention, and several other people. Covert Nerd. Who else? Let me just see here real quick. Credit where credit is due. This is in our new release spoilers section. So we had... I'm just missing now who we've got here. Sikashim, Covert Nerd, of course, that's Lee. Malkadon, Berg. Let me just double check your name here so give proper credit for the reporting, guerrilla reporting, which is what we love. Steve RS 2000, yes. Anyway, yeah, so this was posted on Reddit, and of course, I'm not a member of Reddit. I don't really hang out there. Some people do, more power to them. But anyway, there was some news. So today's kind of my rest day. But anyway, at first it was like, what? What is this? But, I mean, I was thinking, okay, I mean, I got to take this seriously because I remember we first heard about the Frozen Horror through one of these friendly local game shops accidentally posting it too early on their website and people realizing, oh shoot, this is really coming out, you know. Anyway, so the person who posted this is Lord-Drucifer, and he says, and there's a lot of misspellings here, so anyway, this is quote, confirmed pre-orders with my local game store. I spoke with my local game store today, Viking Hobby, which by the way is in California. The proprietress confirmed the following 4 releases are taking orders. She did not give me release dates as they were to be determined on her order form from her distributor. Prophecy of Telor, we knew this was coming. Spirit Queen's Torment, we assumed it was coming, now we know. Against the Ogre Horde, we hoped it was coming, and now we know. I have pre-ordered 2. That's what this guy says. Continue quote, Path of the Wandering Monk, new to me, I pre-ordered 2. I did find a link for it on Isle of Games, though it had no information. So there appears to be 4 releases coming down the pipe. I'm very interested in the Ogre Horde and Path of the Wandering Monk, mostly to see how they translate the Euro version of the game to the new version, and the Monk to see how it compares to my take that I developed for the Kung Fu Panda minis. And then he showed a picture of Viking Hobby. And I like the comments here. Nice, cool, 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 awesome news. Shout out to Lee at Covert Nerd. My prediction on release dates, this is Covert Nerd. Prophecy of Telor, Quarter 4, 2023. Spirit Queen's Torment, Quarter 1, 2024. Against the Ogre Horde, Quarter 3, 2024. Path of the Wandering Monk, Quarter 1, 2025. Well, this is 5 days ago on the 18th, so I completely missed it, so my bad. Sorry, guys. Anyway, thank you to the alert reporters, but I actually called up both of these stores, Viking Hobby and Isle of Games. Isle of Games is in Arizona. Talked to the owners of both the stores, because I wanted to confirm. And at first I thought, okay, they're going to be like really bashful and awkward and refuse to answer questions, but actually they were pretty helpful. At the same time though, I'm sure that they have to kind of dance around and like not say stuff that they're not allowed to say, but it seemed like they were pretty forthcoming. Anyway, Viking Hobby did not have a website. Like they have a website, but the domain is expired. And the owner of the shop, she was like, yeah, we're pretty low tech. I think they have a Facebook page, but I'm not even sure if that's up to date. But she confirmed that this is all real. There really is. I mean, we knew Prophecy of Telor was coming out. She had no date or price on that, but she did confirm it was a smaller box, which we knew that already. I mean, we knew it was basically the size of Keller's Keep or Return of the Witch Lord, as opposed to this larger box that Mage of the Mirror or Frozen Horror came in. And let's see. It was not on the website for the distributor I put down. So I learned a little bit from the second person I talked to at Isle of Games near Sacramento. He was saying that, and this is all over the phone. So he was saying, well, we're kind of we do what the distributor does. So I mean, they don't get stuff direct from Hasbro. Hasbro is more the impression I got was Hasbro is more the type of place that wants to give, a whole rack of copies of a game to like Walmart or Target, whereas the friendly local game shops, they typically don't have as much shelf space, so they are more likely to get like one copy of a game so that they can have a variety rather than a huge stock of something that may or may not sell. So that's kind of how they do it. So both of these shops, when I asked them, they were giving me like, oh, we're trying to get more copies of the Rogue in. We don't have a copy of Rise of the Dread Moon. So I was thinking, oh yeah, typical. But they could confirm, both stores confirmed that these 4 expansions are coming out. They do get that info from Hasbro, so it's absolutely 100% real. So I'm thrilled about that. We knew Prophecy Tellor, but these other 3 had not been confirmed. I mean, in Carmine of Avalon Hill, Hasbro, he's been dropping a lot of hints about ogres, and also through whoever it is that's manning Zargon on Twitter, the official HeroQuest Twitter, have been talking about ogres. And some people thought, well, that's just talking about Mage of the Mirror. That's not talking about against the Ogre Horde. It would be so hard to adapt to the European pack. And I'm just like, would it really? I mean, Phoenix did it in the 2000s. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect. And it's like, some people were saying, well, nobody cares about the European stuff except people in Europe. Well, yeah, but that's a lot of people, potentially a lot of customers. And why not release it globally? Because you had people in Europe who were thrilled to get Frozen Horror and Mage of the Mirror, even though those had all kinds of like rough edges, from 1992. So anyway, a lot of speculation now. There were no pictures. I'm just giving you the info that I have, that I've confirmed. And I don't think it's likely that both these shopkeepers are lying. Why would they do that? Make something up just for publicity. So I take it as 100% fact at this point. So anyway, what I learned was this is the release order according to SKU numbers, which I'm learning a lot of this stuff. It's kind of a foreign language to me. I've never run a store. I've never been a shop owner. So take it for a grain of salt. But what I was told is the order appears to be Prophecy of Tellor first, then Spirit Queen's Torment, which, as you remember, was one of these mythic ones. It was a mythic quest book from Teo Sabadia. Teo Sabadia was the guest author. I'd never heard of the guy, but apparently he's a big deal in Dungeons and Dragons circles. But of course, you got to remember Dungeons and Dragons is Wizards of the Coast, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Hasbro Gaming, just like Avalon Hill is. It's one of their key brands. But anyway, Verg was telling me that he knows that Teo Sabadia and Nikki Dawes are both contractors, just like Stephen Baker is, like freelance artists. So whether or not they're actually like being paid to like tweak their quest packs for the retail releases is unknown to me, but would make sense if that were the case. Of course, that's probably, I mean, it could be already done for all we know. We don't know how much work was needed to be done to put these into retail. So for all we know, they got this done like, a year ago and it's just ready to go. But anyway, the date we were given from these conversations was Path of the Wandering Monk is brand new. That one's January 1st. Now they said, the store owners said, okay, these dates are iffy. So they don't know for sure. I mean, it could change, and when they actually get it in their stores could change. And the second guy at Isle of Games in Arizona made very clear, he's like, hey, buy locally, because they knew I was out of state. But they just said, hey, just buy from your local store. I'm sure you can get the same or better price wherever you happen to be. And Isle of Games, I think that on their webpage, briefly, they took it down because they weren't supposed to put it up. They admitted that okay, they were told, hey, you put it up too early. So they took it down. But briefly, and I think Sik Hashem was the one that mentioned this first, is Path of the Wandering Monk, which we know nothing about, except the shop owner did call it, oh yeah, the cleric one. So like, okay, got it. It's about a cleric of some kind. I'm thinking, is it an orc cleric? I have no proof of that. But anyway, he was saying that one was January 1st. And since he put it as number 3 in the list, and Ogre Horde as last, that makes me think, okay, so Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment are coming out this year. Now we know dates change. So Rise of the Dread Moon, they were telling us August, September, and then it went back to July 17th and 15th, so things change. But it sounds like we can pretty comfortably say, I mean, it's only July 21st as I post this video, that we'll probably be getting Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment this year. It makes a lot of sense because the main work is done. Those quests were already written back in 2020 or 2021. And what would be in the box with those? Well, we can speculate endlessly, but all the quests actually call for are game system assets, other than like the entrance and exit doors. So it makes sense to put those in. Now, if they have a smaller box, it makes sense. We don't know about Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. We had a little discussion about this. And Carmine basically revealed this info. And Amalgamash has already talked about it, so I figured it's okay I'd talk about it too, which is to say that they still need permission from that author to release it. And we don't know if that is because he didn't want it released, or they couldn't contact him, or it was supposed to be for a certain date. They haven't told us why. But I got the impression that they want to release Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, so they would be releasing all the mythic stuff into retail eventually. But as far as when that will happen, we don't know. So it's kind of what they're willing to divulge and what they know for sure. So we do at least 2 out of the 3 mythic quest books are coming out, which is great. That'll cut into the scalper market because there's a lot of demand for those yet still. And I'm sure if it's only like $25 or $35, that's a lot better than paying like hundreds of dollars for it on eBay, which is what the stuff's going for now, or at least last I checked. Now, Against the Ogre Horde coming out next year, along with Path of the Wandering Monk, so we don't know when in the year they'd be coming out. But a while back, Carmine did say that it was basically like a three or 4 product lineup. You know, it's like they have one they've just finished, one that they're testing, and then one that they're still writing. So it's kind of like they just shuffle them forward. As long as the funding and approval of Hasbro continues, they just keep going through. So this Path of the Wandering Monk is very interesting sounding. But going back to what we do know, okay, at least with Against the Ogre Horde, we can say a lot more about it. We know what's in the basic quest. This was a European quest released back in, let me double check the date, 1990. It was only in Europe. So we know what that would contain. And if it's in a smaller box, there'd be enough room for all of the pieces in sort of the remake style. But they might have some extra room, just like we've seen in these various remake boxes, like Frozen Horror, Mage of the Mirror, had extra stuff than just what was necessary to play it. I mean, Frozen Horror, they gave you extra dice. You don't need extra dice to play Frozen Horror. You've already got the dice in the game system. You didn't need extra character pads, but you got them. With Mage of the Mirror, you don't need elven furniture. You just use the regular furniture, but they gave you some elven furniture in as well. Same with Rise of the Dread Moon. Even though it's brand new, they put kind of the rest of the elven furniture in there. Other things they did, I mean, Frozen Horror had more mercenaries than the original version did. Mage of the Mirror had more elf characters than came in the original, even though they were never called for in the quest, just so you could have them. It's like, okay, they got some space, they can put some more plastic in there, why not? Like, I don't know exactly how much these minis cost to make, but supposedly they're, just, less than $1 for each sprue, so to speak. So it would, there's labor, you got to glue them together. I don't know for sure, but it seems like for $45 you get quite a bit. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they put extra stuff into Against the Ogre Horde, especially if it's going to be the larger box. Like, I got the impression that Against the Ogre Horde is not going to be like a Keller's Keep size box. It's going to be the slightly larger Mage of the Mirror style box. So that's encouraging. Hey, Luca Rocks. Darn, got to catch the replay. Have a good stream. Thanks. Great stuff to look forward to. Bring on the Ogres Club. Yeah. So, and then Matthew Rose is here. Welcome. Yeah, so normally we haven't streamed on a Friday in a long time. I mean, normally I didn't do the rant cast because Strange West was gone and I was just exhausted. So I thought I just need some time to rest after all this. So, but here we are updating again. So we're a little late, but yeah. So these are confirmed. I repeat, these are confirmed. I've called 2 stores in 2 different states, and they confirmed that absolutely we are getting Prophecy of Telor, Spirit Queen's Torment, most likely this year, Path of the Wandering Monk, and Against the Ogre Horde next year, so 2024. So, sounds good. And I mean, before we knew 2026, at least through that, they have planned. So, that's a whole nother 2 year or year and a half after this to get stuff. So, it's exciting. So I figured I just take the rest of the stream to kind of the short stream here because I got other stuff to do today. I'm trying to get caught up on things. I got Gen Con coming up, and just like it's just coming up so fast. Like less than 2 weeks from now, I'll be in Indianapolis with some friends, checking things out. Hopefully, meeting up with some of you HeroQuest fans. And I'm still debating whether I should get like a burner phone because I don't have a smartphone to try to do some type of live streaming. Of course, I don't know. I mean, it's like if the battery doesn't last or whatever. But I was thinking, well, I could, when I'm on the convention floor, I could be like recording some interesting stuff, and then I could go back to the hotel, even with a crappy hotel internet, and like use a laptop to like upload some cool photos. Of course, I'm sure other people will be reporting other stuff that they care about. But I mean, right now, I don't have tickets to any events. Like, I just have generic tickets. So I'm kind of just going to be wandering around anyway, trying to get info whenever I can. And the Avalon Hill guys are like, sure, stop by, you know. But if I don't have an actual ticket, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be sitting at a table, like poking a camera in people's faces, you know. So tell me the scoop on this or that. But it'd be fun to try. I mean, I haven't gone to a big convention like that in like probably 20 years. So we'll see how things go, and it's not going to be locked down as much with COVID like it was last year. So that's a good thing as far as accessibility goes. But yeah, let's just get our camera over here. If I can get my camera to work, it's always kind of an iffy thing. It would help if it was plugged in. As far as other news, I mean, we don't have the update on the companion app yet. We don't have an official date on Prophecy of Telor. This is like the closest we've come to actually getting something like that. So let's see here. Let's get rid of this window because we don't really need that anymore. Okay, get rid of the Discord. Okay, so this is Against the Ogre Horde. This is the classic edition, and I bought this from a guy on Board Game Geek. I'm not plugging them here, but that guy was really cool. He's the same guy who sold me Space Crusade. Lives in the UK. I won't say his name out of respect for his privacy, but he was really cool. Gave me an awesome price on it. I mean, I even at one point tried to talk him out of it because I was like, listen, you can get way more money on eBay. Like, this is going for way more. But he was like, no, you know, you can, I want you to have it. It's like, sweet. So anyway, this is obviously the European style. You know, it's got kind of a shiny gloss finish, and this is like almost like a magazine style. This is how the Europeans did their packs. And as you'll see here, there's 4 types of ogres, but they didn't actually have cards. They were just printed on the back. So like if you see Ogre Horde cards, those are made by fans. Those are homebrew, not the actual ones. So you have your Ogre Warrior, which is the most common. There's 4 of these. The Ogre Champion, I think you fight this guy like maybe twice. And there's the little icon for him, right there. And then the Ogre Chieftain, you fight him once. And even though it says variable, I mean, his stats are fixed. And then the Ogre Lord, you fight him once. His stats are fixed. Actually, I could be wrong. You might fight this guy twice. I should look through it. I've only played the first 4 quests, and I was playing like Phoenix's homebrew conversion of this pack to the North American release. But yeah, that's basically what you get. So it's kind of an open question. How are they going to adapt this? I mean, with HeroQuest was originally a European game. It was released in the UK first in 1989. But you had a North American version the following year, so it was already done. Like they already tweaked and changed the rules, just like there was a version in Japan in 1991. So it's like stuff was changed. But there's a storyline here, and actually Wizards of Morcar follows right after this. Yeah, Morcar sat motionless on his throne of pure jet. Deep in thought, his eyes scanned the image of the Emperor's lands, which he had magically conjured before him. He had been so close to victory. So nearly had he trapped and destroyed the Emperor and his forces in the ancient fortress at Carrickvarn. So that's Keller's Keep, has already happened. But he had been foiled at the last minute by the Emperor's accursed champions. So after the game system, the same fate had befallen his powerful ally, the Witch Lord, whose army of the dead had crumbled before the slaying of their leader. So Return of the Witch Lord's already happened. Again, you can play these in any order you want, but storyline-wise, this takes place after those. And then Wizards of Morcar takes place right after this one. Morcar needed some new and subtle means to attack the Empire and weaken its forces before he could lead his armies against them once more. Suddenly, his gaze froze, and a smile sent ripples through the lines of his ancient face. A plan had come to him. A month later, Morcar, and again, that was the original name of the evil wizard guy, not Zargon, again sat back to examine the scheme he had set in motion. He had never before considered the ancient race of ogres as a potential tool. Their undisciplined and random nature made them unreliable as servants and dangerous as allies. However, using the magical arts at his disposal, Morcar had planted one of his chaos sorcerers, Festral, within the subterranean fortress of the infamous Dyrgrust ogre clan. Drawing from a magical pool of chaos power, Festral had subtly taken control of the ogre clan and started them on a series of raids on the Emperor's farmlands. This was only the beginning, for as the raids went on, other ogre clans and orc tribes came to swell the ranks of this new army. And of course, in Remake HeroQuest, they change it from, the Empire to the Realm and the King instead of the Emperor and all that. Carrickvarn is now Kabakarn, but same basic idea. So this is what the original came with. So you had one Ogre Lord, one Chieftain, one Champion, and 4 Ogre Warriors. One large die-cut sheet, including one overground starting tile, 2 new double-sided room tiles, 15 Chaos Spell tokens. There was a great comment on my YouTube, XSC3, Home of HeroQuest fans, about how, well, they probably won't have tokens. But have you seen Rise of the Dread Moon lately? I mean, it's filled with tokens. So I would not be surprised at all if they continue that. And in fact, I hope they do. The idea is you face a Chaos Sorcerer and he'll have like a handful of tokens showing he can use that spell that many times. And every time you do it, you flip over one of the tokens. 4 stone doorways. I mean, those could be plastic in a remake version. Then again, they've used the door bases now in both Rise of the Dread Moon and Mage of the Mirror, so we could get the plastic base that you insert the cardboard tile into for that. 4 Pits of Darkness tokens. And there's an error, possible errata for Wizards of Morcar because they show the Pit of Darkness tokens in a quest, but they don't explain them. And how could they assume that you own both this and that one? Then 6 Fallen Rubble tokens, which are single-sided, and 4 Secret Door tokens, also single-sided, and 1 Ogre Throne. And the Ogre Throne is actually just a piece of cardboard that you just take the throne you already have and you insert that cardboard into it. So that would probably be plastic. It's just double the size of the regular throne. Let's see. Introduction. Against the Ogre Horde confronts our valiant heroes with a new threat far more dangerous than anything they've yet encountered. The Dyrgrust Ogre Clan. This quest book contains new rules for the ogres, rules for monsters with variable body points, and new rules for mind points. There's 7 new quests, only 7, because they're all group quests, which will test the courage and resourcefulness of the Emperor's heroes like never before. So the 3, well, why don't I just talk about it? So I'll just give you an example of so we've got the ogre body points. They explain what those mean. So to just give you the short version, so it's actually written on the quest book. They expect you to take out a pencil and actually cross them off. So the first ogre you encounter, it's like 1, 2, 3, he's dead. The next one, 1, 2, 3, he's dead. Next one, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's like whatever the first ogre is. I mean, the quest could be linear, but they have different amounts. So the first one could be 1, the second one could be a different one. So if you replay the quest, it's not guaranteed to always play out exactly the same. Some ogres could be really easy to defeat with only 1 body point. Certain personality monsters, such as the Ogre Lord or the Orc Warlord, might have a personal set of extra body points, which will be specified in the individual quest. These monsters will each have their own special body point track, which will appear next to their characteristics in the quest notes. When a personality monster loses body points, the lost body points are recorded against his own personal body point track and not the Ogre body point track. So the way the European version handled these multi-body point monsters, because they were not the norm. So in the North American version, half the monsters have multiple body points. So you got your Fimers, or now Abominations. You got your Mummies, Chaos Warriors, and Gargoyles. Now Dread Warriors. But in this one, it was like, in the European version, they all had one body point. Even the Witch Lord only one body point. In Keller's Keep, I think there was a Gargoyle? I think there was a Gargoyle that had 4 body points. And with that one, they just said take out an extra character sheet and write it on there for them. But here'd be an example. Let me just find a quest here. Spoilers for this quest. Okay, so there, you've got your body point tracker for the various bad guys. That's only the ogres. So there's the commander, ogre chieftain, and so you also get, apprentice chaos sorcerers. So that's how that works. But anyway, let me show you the plastic. So again, this is just to kind of speculate and get an idea of what Against the Ogre Horde might be like in 2024. So this is the throne from the classic game system. Actually, this is the European one. It's like, what's the difference? The plastic is just a slightly different shade of brown, but otherwise it's the same. I mean, you can't really tell the difference. So I got to make sure I put that back in the right box. But the Ogre Throne looks like this. And I did not own these, like I said, until very recently. So that's the Ogre Throne. So you would just pull this plastic off, put that cardboard inside to create that. And yeah, you can't actually sit on it, but it'd be kind of fun to pretend. So let's see. Here's what you've got. So these tokens. These are the tokens. Chaos spell tokens. Because they were called chaos spells in the original. And now the quest book doesn't actually tell you about some of the core rules, because for all you know, you could be playing the first edition of Hero Quest, or you could be playing the second edition. And they both have very different rules. See? So like one of the differences in the first edition, you can search corridors or passages, as they call them, for treasure. Whereas in the second edition, you can't. First edition, Courage and Rock Skin only last for like 1 attack or 1 defense. Whereas in second edition, they last until you lose a body point or you lose track of monsters, in the case of Courage. Also, the first edition had 2 copies of the shield and 2 copies of the helmet, whereas second edition got rid of those duplicate equipment cards and replaced them with the Cloak of Protection and Bracers. And yes, the rules pretty much lead you to believe that the cards do actually limit supply in that version. But then they released the Adventure Design Kit, which basically said, nah, forget that. Just write it down on your character sheet and put it back when you get it. Of course, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe, I don't know how people played it in the UK, because I didn't grow up there and I didn't, really run into players who told me their stories, but did they really think there was only 1 copy of plate mail, like plate armor, for people to fight over? Or was it more like, well, in between quests, there's only 1 copy available and you can buy it, but the next in between quest shopping phase, it would be available again, and then 1 other person could buy it, like that sort of thing? Because there was no mechanic to sell stuff back, so I guess you could just be like, hey, I don't want it anymore, here, you can have it, to the other hero, and I'll use Borin's armor instead, or whatever. So anyway, looking at these tokens, these are cardboard, of course. You've got Mind Lock. It's like a mental power. So the Chaos Sorcerer and Defender both roll dice equal to their mind points. The Defender will be frozen for 1 turn for each skull scored by the Chaos Sorcerer. And so there's 1, 2... I want to say there's 5 of each. 3... 4, 5. Yeah, so there's 5 of each of these 3 spells. So the other ones we've got is Dominate. So this is kind of like Command in a way from the North American version. The Chaos Sorcerer, come on, autofocus. Chaos Sorcerer and Defender both roll dice equal to their mind points. If the Sorcerer scores 2 skulls or more, he may use the Defender's combat piece for the duration of his turn. There's also a weird hazard later on called the Pit of Chaos, where it says if you enter the Pit of Chaos, you are under Zargon's or Morkar's control forever. You fall to chaos forever. So does that mean if you basically dominate somebody, you can just like move them there and just like control them until they die? That's pretty nasty. And then the third one is Mind Blast, which there is a Mind Blast in Mage of the Mirror, but it functions very differently. The Chaos Sorcerer and Defender both, I can't seem to focus, both roll dice, there we go, equal to their mind points. The player who scores the most skulls inflicts mind point damage equal to the number of skulls he has in excess of his opponent's score. So here, kind of like our homebrew wrestling moves. I mean, the attacker could actually get hurt in an engagement like this if he loses the roll off, which I think is cool. So let's just get Mind Lock. There's Mind Lock. Gotta love those illustrations, right? And notice he's got the chaos symbol on his forehead there, which is a Games Workshop deal. I think that stylized helmet and everything. So Modern Hero Quest doesn't use that because it's not Games Workshop collaborative anymore. Dominate. And these tiles are pretty heavy. Yeah. So anyway, you've got those. So that's one of the components. That doesn't take up very much room, right? So there's 15 of those. And then the other tiles, I'll just show you here. Anybody who's familiar with the North American version will go, whoa, these look different. So these are secret doors, of course. But look at that. They're just black on the back. They're not double-sided like that. I mean, they're double-sided in the sense that, I mean, that's the same finish on both sides, but yeah, so there's extra secret doors for you to use, and you won't get them confused because you can see like that. Actually, I want to say that the ones in the game system were single-sided, quote-unquote, like that too. And you've got the rubble tiles, which, again, there's another difference between the European and North American version is rubble. There's no single block squares. So just to compare the North American Hero Quest remake version. So this is what we think of like blocking, like a corner or something, and it's solid rock usually between. Whereas in the European version, it's always this thing. Whereas when we see that, we think, oh, that's a falling block trap. Well, in the European version, there's no difference. Like that's anytime you want to block something, that's what you use, and then it's black on the back. So you could be like, oh, it's a pit, something like that if you wanted to. But we actually already have a Pit of Darkness. So there's 6 of those rubble tiles, and then there's 4 secret doors, and 4 of these Pits of Darkness. So you'll notice it's a different art than the regular pit trap, the familiar pit trap that we all are used to seeing. You know, this is the remake edition. This one. So the Pit of Darkness is supposed to be a 30-foot drop. And if you fall into it, if you take more damage depending on what type of armor you're wearing. So plate mail or Boren's armor rolls the most damage, then chainmail, and then if you don't have any body armor like that, you take the smallest amount of damage. So let me just get this from the book here. Pits of Darkness. So the Pit of Darkness trap works in the same way as a normal pit trap with the following exceptions. If a character crossing a Pit of Darkness space rolls a skull, so just like, crossing it, so not just jumping it, because jumping it would be the same. He plunges 30 feet onto hard floor. So you might not fall into it? Interesting. Once he falls, a character will suffer damage depending on how much armor he is wearing. Characters not wearing any armor must roll 1 combat die to see if they lose a body point. So that makes it sound like you roll to see if you fall in, then you roll to see if you take damage. Those wearing chainmail or... Oh, I was wrong. I misspoke before. Sorry, I didn't remember. Okay. Chainmail or Born's armor must roll 2 combat dice. And those wearing plate mail, they actually call it plate mail here, not just plate armor, must roll 3 combat dice. So you could lose 3 body points. A character may climb out of a pit of darkness on his next turn if there is a free space on any one side of the pit of darkness. Pit of darkness may not be disarmed, but characters may jump over them like ordinary pit traps. I assume that's once they're revealed. Interesting. Because it's the same way as a normal pit trap. Oh, I know why they said that. So in the European version, this is another difference with North American and remake, is that in this version, after you spring a falling block trap or a pit trap, normally they're just there forever. It's a permanent obstacle. In the European version, you can actually fix them after the fact. So a dwarf could like fill in a pit trap, or someone with a toolkit could fill in or clear out a falling block trap. But they're saying once it's triggered, then it's permanent. So for the North American rules, that wouldn't change. That'd be the same. So what other tweaks might they make? Who's to say? But I could see them giving, the other monsters. I mean, these quests are pretty challenging with the multi-body point monsters. So would they tweak that at all? Who's to say? What other rules would they allow? But it looks like as far as, there's no artifacts. And alchemist shops and spell scrolls were a North American thing. So you don't have any of that here. So you're just finding gold and gold coins. You're finding gold and you're finding potions of healing is what you're finding for treasure. But they assume that you've already played the game system and probably Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord as well. So there really isn't much that you need to buy. But some people were saying, oh, that's kind of boring. So they might do something to spruce that up. Let's see what else. General rules. The following quests can either be played individually or as a continuous adventure, with one quest falling on from the next. If you choose to play them as a series of quests, the following rules apply. Now, people have debated what this means. Does this mean just like how, how like the Quest 9 and 10 of Mage of the Mirror, Rise of the Dread Moon, and Frozen Horror are like one quest? Like, you don't get to heal, your spells don't get restored in between, and you don't get to shop. And this is the way some people choose to play Keller's Keep, because they're like, well, you're underground, you couldn't possibly go to the shop, even though that makes the quest way harder. But surely you could rest in between. But anyway, so are they meaning something like that? Or they just mean you can't shop in between? So they probably want to clarify. Evelyn Hill probably wants to clarify this. So playing the quest as a series. At the start of the first quest, each character should receive 5 healing potions, each of which will heal the character up to his maximum body points once. Doesn't say mind points. Take a note of these potions on the character sheets and cross them off as you use them. Any number of potions may be used in any one quest. Characters that use magic may replenish their spells between quests, but they must keep the same spells they chose right at the start of the first quest. See, a lot of people forget that rule from Hero Quest. It's like, in Quest 1, the wizard and the elf picked their magics, but in Quest 2, do they have to keep the same ones? Nah, they can change them if they want. But here they're saying if you play it as a series, you don't get to do that. So, in case you didn't know, this is how the designers intended to be played. It's Hero Quest, you can do whatever you want, but characters may not buy new equipment between these quests, but may keep anything they have found in those quests. That's a change. Because in the European version, unlike the North American version, when you draw something from the treasure deck, you get to keep gold from quest to quest. But anything else, so Holy Water, Potion of Speed, Potion of Defense, Heroic Brew, and Potion of Strength. Well, they call it Potion of Defense Resilience. But anyway, those potions, you have to return them to the treasure deck at the end of the quest if you haven't used them up. Whereas in the North American version, you can keep stockpiling them because you just write it down and the card Gets discarded, but then it gets re-added. So this makes it sound like you get to keep using those. But does that mean that those cards don't go back into the deck? Or they do once you use them up? That's a little unclear. The Evil Wizard player should reshuffle the treasure deck between each quest, returning any used treasure cards from the previous quest to the pack. So if they're not used, they don't go in, I guess, if I'm reading it right. If any of the characters are killed during a quest, Mentor is able to magically transport a new starting hero to join the party at the beginning of the following quest. See, a lot of people forget this rule in general. Like if you're playing the Hero Quest game system, oh man, you know, everyone died except the Barbarian. What do we do in the next quest? Is the Barbarian by himself? No. You get all those characters back. So if, just like in our campaign, you know, if Robert Paulson gets killed, well, Paul Robertson replaces him in the next one. And actually, for the North American one, a lot of people forget this rule as well, is that if your artifacts are stolen by monsters, like gone, they're supposed to come back as special treasures early in the next quest. So in that sense, artifacts are never lost. I mean, well, spoilers. There's a couple places where artifacts can be destroyed and certain ones can be used up. But I mean, Boren's armor, I mean, unless it was destroyed, it's never going away. Like, it's always coming back in the next quest. So there is that. Advice to players. Before the characters begin these quests, they should carefully choose the equipment and the magical items they will take with them. So that's assuming you've played some other quests, you actually have some of that. Remember the crossbow and the spear, because there's a spear in this version and not in North American. Actually, that's kind of funny because we got the Ice Queen spear as a bonus for Into the Northlands, and we got the Dragon spear in Joe Manganiello's Crypt of Perpetual Darkness in the Mythic quest, but there's been no like just regular spear for the remake. Just something to think about there. But I mean, it's just 2 dice, diagonal attack, throwable, lost when thrown. Same price as the what was the same? Oh, I think it's the same price as one other item. I forget what it. Oh, the hand axe. So 250 gold for the spear. The spear allows a character to join an attack against a foe who might otherwise be blocked by other attacking characters. See, it's the whole door blocking technique. Players should stick together as one party and advance carefully, searching for traps and trying not to move through any rooms which they have not checked. So some basic strategy there. Advice to the Evil Wizard player, aka Morcar. The Evil Wizard player should try to lure the heroes into his traps by making them chase monsters to charge to the attack. He should make the best use of the new traps and spells now available to him. For example, look at the second quest in this book. Spoilers. Yeah. So you have advice to, Zargon to actually kill the heroes. I mean, different than the Japanese version where it's kind of like, if they kill themselves based on their own stupidity, that's one thing. But yeah. Okay, so what else is in the box? Kind of got off track there. Sorry. Against the Ogre Horde. So we could expect to find these stone doors. So the special rules for these 3 stone doors. These just insert into the door bases. So they could do that, or they could make it plastic, I suppose. Maybe make it gray. It's kind of boring. But that'd be something. And, I'm sorry, there's 4 of them. I forgot. Yeah, 4 these stone doors. So depending on what class of hero using the D&D term, character type. So the Barbarian has the easiest time breaking these down. And then the Dwarf, and then the Elf, and then the Wizard, I think he can't even do it. He would need like a genie spell to actually break through it. These door bases are actually from Wizards of Morcar, so those wouldn't be in there. But anyway, so as you can see, it doesn't take up a lot of room. I mean, 1 tile sheet should do it for this stuff. And a couple doors. But then what about the monsters? Well, there would obviously be some plastic monsters. One viewer was speculating, well, what if they decide to just make them bigger than the Mage of the Mirror or ogres? And what if they decide to make them like huge, like the Frozen Horror? Like, well, that would take up some room. I don't know if they could do 8 of them that size. That'd be a pretty big box. But let's just take a look here. So this is the artwork, of course. I think that's Les Edwards that did that. just like he did the original cover for HeroQuest game system, Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord. So that's the Ogre Horde. Pretty colorful guys, based on Games Workshop miniature designs, of course. But look at these guys. Doesn't that guy kind of remind you of the one from Age of the Mirror Remake Edition? Except for the spiked gauntlet. He's just got a fist. But see how they have different weapons? So you'd have different sculpts. And actually, as Amalgamash mentioned in his video some time ago, the Dwarf Quest Pack, which was never made, but we would have probably gotten it in 1993 had they continued HeroQuest with Milton Bradley under Hasbro's direction, and they hadn't canceled everything. We probably would have gotten these 3 characters in the Dwarf Quest Pack, just like we got this in the Elf Quest Pack. So they were bringing the European stuff over. So anyway, these are the miniatures. And the guy who sold this to me, he didn't have the box. He threw out the expansion box a long time ago. So these are the... Oops, some of these have fallen apart. But yeah, they're multi-part figures. So you can see the head, the arms, and let's see it just... And then the chest plate, it's like 2 pieces. So you got to assemble it, but no glue required. But the cool thing is it's semi-posable. So you can do that. It kind of looks like a mutant orc, doesn't it? I mean, because compare it to the orc, it's like a fatter, uglier orc. In my opinion. I didn't like this design at first, but it's kind of grown on me. So it's like, huh? You know. But anyway, there's 4 of these warriors, and they're red, so you're thinking, oh, they're heroes, right? Well, they're a different shade of red than the actual heroes. So, I mean, this is painted. It isn't exact, but I mean, there's a slight difference in color. The thing is, when you see the red plastic of the heroes, I mean, in the European ones are a different shade of red than the North American ones, and then some in other countries. It's a subtle difference. So anyway, you've got 4 of these guys. And you'll notice the bases are actually bigger. So this is a reproduction, but I mean, look at the size of the base. It is slightly bigger than those. So you got 4 of these guys. This guy lost his head. And yes, you could make the parts interchangeable, I guess. And there are some variants of these that are like gray and black. And I have some of them, but okay, so this is the... Okay, I'm gonna have to look. I don't have them memorized because I've only played the first few of these. So they're kind of a dark blue. It looks black on here, but it's a very, very dark blue. Much darker than the blue of the 1992 Mage of the Mirror, like the original Mage of the Mirror ogres. I could dig those out, but I don't really want to right now. But just imagine like a lighter, like cornflower blue. So these are a different color of plastic. But yeah, so that's the... this is the Ogre Lord. So this is the final boss that you fight. One of him, and then this is the Ogre Chieftain, who's got the mohawk haircut and the spiked gauntlet. You've probably seen 3D prints of these guys online. I mean, these guys are ridiculously expensive normally, like individually. Regularly go for like 20 bucks a piece. So I really got a good deal. I really lucked out. So shout out to the guy whose name I can't say on Board Game Geek who sold these to me. And then this is the Ogre Champion. So as you can see, they've got different weapons. Axes, club with a nail, a big spike through it, or a mace. Would you call it a Morning Star? It's not a flail, but anyway. Yeah. Okay, so just forgot a little something here I wanted to show. There were some major tiles for against the Ogre Horde. So these actually would be included in the original version from 1990. HeroQuest expansion against the Ogre Horde. So we've got this room tile. So a 4x5 room. So it's like a bloody battle arena. Flip that over and we've got a bridge over a chasm. So you'd have this tile in there for the tile sheet, and you also have this magic room, magic eye room, 4x4 room. Flip it over, and you got this ornate rug, cool decoration. So second tile, and then the third tile, this humongous, gigantic pit of chaos, or pit of dread, I guess, under the new version. 7x8. So I was thinking with Prophecy of Telor, I wonder if they'll have one this size. I mean, that's pretty big. It's kind of curled a little bit, kind of flatten it out. That's the problem when they get this size. They can start to warp a little bit. But this was the outdoor area. So nothing too fancy. I mean, this is kind of like where you start and where you end the campaign. So yeah, it's a pretty big area. So, and I think monsters can't follow you here, but you could use that for an outdoor. So yeah, those would be included with Against the Ogre Horde. We would expect those to be included in the remake version in 2024. So, yeah, that's it. So 7 monsters, maybe like 3 pieces of furniture, no cards, just a bunch of tokens, and some tiles. And yeah, they could throw in artifacts to make it cooler. They could throw in an alchemist shop. And then, of course, the old speculation was, well, why not take the Wizards of Morcar stuff and throw it in? You've got the 4 Wizards of Morcar. You've got 12 red mercenaries with interchangeable weapons. So it'd probably be like 24 if they go with the solid piece instead of the bolt-on weapons. Just kind of like they did for Frozen Horror. I mean, that's why they did it for Frozen Horror. They gave you 12 mercenaries because they weren't going to have removable weapons. Because normally you had 6 of them and you just pick the weapon you want and put it on. But that also was good because Frozen Horror was so tough out of the box that giving you the option to hire up to 12 mercenaries actually helped the difficulty, make it a little more fair. And Wizards of Morcar is supposed to be pretty tough because the spells those 4 evil sorcerers have are ridiculous. So it's kind of like having the Dread Cultists, but well, it's actually like fighting 4 Chaos Sorcerers at once. And you might have a Chaos Sorcerer in the same quest with those 4 guys. And they can open doors, too, so they can activate rooms. So that's another thing. And as far as, like, errata and those quests, I think there's some treasure chests that aren't marked. And there really isn't much of an ending. It just kind of ends abruptly. I think this one does, too. It just kind of ends. I mean, I guess there's no epilogue. It's the introduction to the next quest, where Zargon's like furious with his subordinates and he sends them off to the next one. Now you could have a little Battle Masters battle at the end, because it says that if you win, you are going to lead the Emperor's forces against the remnants of the Ogre Horde. So you could use Battle Masters to recreate that, just like you could for Keller's Keep, which Jacer, one of our most loyal players, has done before on his channel, Warbuilder J22, which you should check out. 22J on, or J22 or J22J on YouTube. Just look for Warbuilder J and then 22 and you'll find it. So shout out to Jacer J there. Cool guy. He always has, like, if you just tell him something about your game, he'll like have 20 ideas like right off the bat. Like he can just list off ideas for homebrew stuff. It's really cool. So, and he's painted a lot of interesting stuff. So definitely check him out. And he just shows one of the cool ways a lot of people who play HeroQuest these days do it, which is to introduce it to your kids. Get them involved in your painting projects and your crafting projects and your board games. Because otherwise, what are you doing it for? Just to impress some people on the internet, right? So get some people together, whether it's your family or your friends, and play some games. So anyway, that's Against the Ogre Horde, and if that's coming out next year, they should have plenty of time to like refine it and tweak it, and make it something that both European and North American players could enjoy, as far as a new quest pack. And it wouldn't just seem like that's it, that's all there is. I mean, if they use the exact same sculpt of the ogre, which I doubt they would, I would think they would use a new sculpt. but they've got 4 designs to come up with. So there'd be at least 3 new ones. Prophecy of Telor, I mean, we've already speculated. Some cards, some tiles, what else? It would be a golden opportunity for them to release those mythic, re-release those mythic stretch goals. Maybe tweaked, refined, reposed, maybe looking a little bit better. Because I think there were a lot of complaints. I mean, people love to get new stuff, but there's a lot of complaints with the build quality of some of the stuff in the mythic sets. I mean, you had broken pieces and stuff like that. But to be fair, of course, Avalon Hill did respond pretty swiftly, or Hasbro customer care, or whoever was in charge. Sorry, just shaking up my paint here. This stuff, I'm trying to restore a lot of my paints with the airbrush thinner, the stuff, and it's working pretty well. Thanks again to the HeroQuest fans on Discord for cluing me into that stuff, putting some drops in there and shaking it up. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of time for them to do that stuff, and I think people are really excited for getting it because, I mean, you still have people going on eBay trying to buy that stuff for ridiculous prices. So they'll stick it to the scalpers. They'll get a lot of people back into it, and all those people that missed out on the HasLab, crowdfunding campaign could finally get that stuff. But what exactly will they put in? We don't know yet. So it's cool to get confirmation that all that stuff is really, really happening. But at this point, we don't know contents, we don't know pictures, we don't know prices. And if I didn't say it before, the Isle of Gaming place basically made clear that the $23.99, I mean, that may have just been a placeholder, but the Path of the Wandering Monk might be a smaller set, because once you subtract the savings from their loyalty program, so they make the prices a little bit higher because they are a small local game shop, higher than MSRP, but then you join their loyalty program at their store and it gives you discounts, so it goes back to the MSRP or maybe a little bit below that. So once you take that savings into account, the Path of the Wandering Monk would be very similar in price to the Rogue Heir of Elathorn. So why would that be? So maybe the Path of the Wandering Monk is not a quest. Maybe it's just another character. Now, since Prophecy of Telor is coming out, we don't know what else that'll include. But maybe they'll throw one of the missing heroes in there. Maybe they'll throw in the Druid or the Warlock. They could. I mean, those heroes are not specifically used in that quest. But then again, the Guardian Knight isn't specifically used in Rise of the Dreadmoon. And he's in the box. So there's that. Now, Spirit Queen's Torment does provide rules for using the Orc Bard. He can either be one of the 4 heroes, so he would replace one of the 4 classic, or if one of those heroes dies, like for good, he replaces that hero, just that first hero that dies. So if the dwarf dies, he doesn't have any potions, oh well, he's gone. The Orc Bard just jumps out of nowhere and he gets to control that character. Now, what happens in the next quest, though? Does the Bard keep on playing, or do you swap it out for a new dwarf? I mean, I guess it's up to Zargon to decide at that point. But that's how he was incorporated. But that was the only direction they gave for any of those heroes. I mean, all these other ones, the Druid, the Warlock, the Rogue, the Guardian Knight, there's no official direction given on how to use them. Although, if you pick up the companion app always ensures that you have no more than 4 heroes, and you can't have 2 of the same character type at the same time. So even though Mage of the Mirror, they deleted that paragraph on purpose or by accident, you can't have 2 elves in the same party. You can't have 2 rogues. You can't have 2 bards. But you can have any other combination of heroes. And you can have fewer than 4, but they always recommend that you have at least 4 because it's going to be much more difficult without that, because the quests were designed for 4 heroes. Now, when you get to a solo quest in the companion app, it just basically asks you which one you want to use, or it says, oh, this is only for the elf, or this is only for the barbarian. So there's that. So yeah, I'm excited for these. Part of me wishes that the cleric that we'll be getting will be a reformed orc cleric, because that was kind of... I didn't really like the idea of the bard. I thought he was too silly. So I decided that he's going to be a pirate orc. And his abilities are exactly the same. They just have different like more piratey descriptions. So like he's passing around grog instead of like singing an inspiring tale or whatever. And then I had an idea, well, what if he's an orc that became a monk? So he's changed from his evil ways, and he's trying to convert the other orcs and vengeance to them if they don't take up his offer. So I thought, well, that could be a cool idea. But who, I'm sure they have their own ideas. They're not just going to copy mine. And I don't mind. It's like, go ahead, steal my idea. Like, you can't copyright rules, right? So go for it. I mean, I was overjoyed to see that the homebrew rules I was using for alchemy in our campaign was really close to what they ended up doing in Rise of the Dreadmoon. Now, you could say great minds think alike. I mean, I'm already using a potion deck that Sheng put together. I mean, he just took the potions from all the different quest packs, the official ones, and put them together and then added a couple new ones. And I mean, all I'm doing is just having you go up to the alchemist bench and draw one if you're the wizard or the elf. And I mean, Avalon Hill and Rise of the Dreadmoon, they're adding an extra step. First you find the treasure from the treasure deck, then you go up to it, and then that treasure will trigger like either a random draw or like 2 or 3 choices of potion that you'll get. So it's like very similar. But I think that's cool because I think it's a really cool system, and they're just using a variation of that. So a lot of these fan ideas get thought of, and they may make their way into an official pack, and that's pretty awesome. But if you don't like it, you can always easily change it. But I agree with those who say, well, but it should still be as coherent and easy to pick up out of the box as possible, because not everybody wants to play HeroQuest. Like, not everybody comes to HeroQuest with that D&D mentality of, oh, I have to spend hours and hours prepping as the GM. I got to prep all this stuff. I mean, yeah, maybe you do give it a once over, read the quest one time, just to kind of see, like, okay, is this how I want to do it? What do I do if something crazy happens? But for the most part, a lot of people, they just open the box and start playing, and they just ad-lib if something goes wrong. Or, as we saw during HeroQuest Day, a lot of those streamers were asking the chat, like, am I doing this right? Like, because the one guy, Knights Around the Table, he hadn't played since he was a kid, and the people at Good Society, I don't think had ever played it before. And I didn't give him a hard time, and I don't think people in the chat gave him a hard time either. But we were talking about like rules lawyering at the table, like never rules lawyer. But to me, rules lawyering means like you're a player and you're like telling the GM, hey, I should be able to do this. And they're like, no, that's not how you do that. And they're like, I don't care. Let me show you in the rules where it is. Like they're arguing rather than just going, oh, okay, fine. Because the GM always reserves the right to amend the rules, right? I mean, he's not cheating. He's just saying, well, when we play it this way, we're going to do it this way. And the players should be like, well, okay, they just accept it. And when it's their turn to be the GM, they can decide, well, the crossbow works this other way, other than what you said, like it works a different way. I mean, I think if you're Zargon, if you know that it's like a controversial rule, you should probably tell them ahead of time, just so people kind of are prepared. Like, I want to do that when I play people, because I understand that you're playing people from the community who have grown up with playing HeroQuest. And maybe they played it a certain way, or maybe they're from a different region. They played their version of the game, played it a certain way. And if not, it's like, okay, they go, oh, I thought I could do this. It's like, nope, you can't. It's like, okay, that changes my whole strategy then. Because you're trying to have a good time. But rules lawyering at the table is definitely a faux pas. It's definitely frowned upon. You don't want to interrupt the adventure, even though this is not an RPG, this is a board game. There's less of that, but you don't want to be arguing about the rules and getting all hot and bothered about it when you're just trying to have a good time. But I don't think people were rules lawyering. I think that those GMs on those live streams were actually asking people, hey, how do we do this? And people are in the chat were saying, oh, well, we did this, or, well, most people do this. But it was still up to the GM to decide, okay, regardless of what those people just said in the chat, here's how we're going to do it. Or I'm going to pick from the suggestions they gave and do it this way. Because even if everybody was against them, it doesn't matter. They're the authority in the game. They get to do it how they want. And I kind of got teased for saying, well, Zargon can do whatever he wants. It's like, yeah, but the point I was missing was they're asking. They're like, no, seriously, how do you guys do it? Because I don't get it. Or I don't remember. Like, I think at Knights Around the Table, the guy was like, well, I've got all these chaos spells. And people were like, well, you can't really use them. Or dread spells. You can't really use them in this quest. And he's like, aw. And I was like, hey, if you want to be able to use them, you can use them. You can just say, yeah, that orc can cast Ball of Flame. It's like, sure, why not? I mean, unless it's like making the quest impossibly hard when it wasn't intended to be played that way. But why not? But that's the risk that you run when you're playing a live stream of a game and you have the chat involved, because now all of a sudden it's like those players aren't in the game, so they're not really rules lawyering because they're not players. You know what I mean? They're just observers. But it can be distracting too. The way we do it on HeroQuest fans, the people in the Twitch chat can use their gold coins to influence the quest, so I consider them players. And I don't think we've ever had an issue of people saying, no, you can't do that. You've got to do it this way. I mean, I'll maybe take their feedback into consideration, but I'm not going to like bend over backwards and change the whole game just because they said, oh, you shouldn't be able to jump that trap. But I mean, if they buy a potion, I'm going to honor that. If they buy a monster, I'm going to honor that in my own way because I'm the GM. So that's how I play it. But I mean, I can't hold it against these people because they're used to playing games where they're just playing the game and people are watching. It's a little more, there's a little less audience participation other than, oh, shout out to this person who said hi. Or like one person on the Good Society stream asked a question where they said like, because the players were mentioning, oh yeah, Avalon Hill suggested we start with this equipment because they were starting a quest right in the middle of Mage of the Mirror, like right in the middle of the campaign. So rather than starting with just basic heroes, they gave them certain stuff. So people are asking, well, what did they start with? And so they listed off the equipment, and I think some people were saying, well, it would have been easier if you had this or that, or why didn't you get this? But they were just asking questions. They weren't arguing. They weren't criticizing. So I don't think anybody did anything wrong. And I mean, I wasn't there live for that stream. I watched it later. That was on Twitch. I watched the VOD. Knights Around the Table was on YouTube. I actually haven't seen Shelfside's game, which is odd because I sort of considered him like the most legit of the people in terms of HeroQuest, because he'd done like several popular videos on HeroQuest like way before this. Which is not to say the other people aren't legit. It's just that they weren't known for like doing HeroQuest stuff. So anyway, there's nothing wrong with like new people playing a game, and I mean, who cares? Play HeroQuest the way you want to. It doesn't matter if all the people online say that you're wrong. Who are they to tell you how to play? I mean, you can take their advice if you want to, but you don't have to. If you've got a homebrew rule that works well for you, or you want to interpret the rules a certain way, why not? So I think it's cool that Avalon Hill, again, this is a soapbox here. I think it's cool that Avalon Hill like answers questions, and I think it'd be really cool if they released an official errata, of all the official quests saying like, this is what we intended, this is how it should be. But at the same time, they know people are going to do it the way they want to. I mean, Avalon Bill knows well that when he said courage should work like this, and I'm like, no, no, and some other people were like, no, that's crazy. That's not how it goes. He's like, well, you can play it however you want to. I mean, he's right. They can have their intention for how they think it should go. And other people have been playing it a different way for 30 years. They're not going to be able to stop those people from playing it how they want to. So I think that's a cool just dynamic in HeroQuest, is that I don't think you're going to have a version wars kind of thing. I mean, the European players can still play their game that way with the remake edition. They just ignore what the rules say and just play it the way they always knew it to be. Japanese players can pick it up and play it the way they want to. I mean, it'd be cool to have like an actual printed version, that's easy to come by, but you can find that information online. But let's face it, not everybody goes online looking for stuff, but they constantly get bombarded with people saying, well, what order should I play the quests? Or how does the crossbow really work? They may honestly not know that stuff, and they're really trying to find out. Or they may have had an argument at the table, and they just want, guy who made the game, solve this argument for me. Like, hopefully it comes out of my favor. But I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's rules lawyering, because you're not arguing in the middle of a game. You're doing it before the game, so that the next time you play, you have an idea. Like, well, most people don't play it like this, but we're going to do it this way. Or, well, we've been playing it this way, but let's try this new way that someone suggested might be more fun. You know, like with the crossbow thing, like I treat it as, you know, you're on a square. Well, let me just show you. Okay, let's pretend this is a crossbow guy. Like, I'm saying that if he has the crossbow, this is how I do it. These 8 squares he can't hit. Okay? Not at all. So if a monster's right here, he can't shoot him with the crossbow. That's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying, and that's how that works in the Japanese version. But if he's right here, he can shoot him. Or here, or here, or here, or here. Or even like, he could be like way over here, and he could hit him. You know, or maybe hit him like that. He could hit him with the crossbow. But if he's here, because it just says adjacent though. What Avalon Hill is saying, and I think what people have been reading in between the lines all along, is to say, well, it says adjacent can't be hit by the crossbow. So those 4 squares can't be hit. But it doesn't say he can't hit the close diagonal squares. But to me, in the North American rules, that's what the longsword is for. So why would I ever buy the longsword if I know that I can hit those squares? I mean, yeah, I can't hit these, but the barbarian starts with the broadsword, so he's already got a 3 dice attack. So it kind of is superfluous. So I choose to do it that way, but I can respect the fact that the modern designers, and maybe the original designers, intentionally or not, basically said that you could hit those 4 squares. Another rule that's interesting is throwing a dagger. It says any monster you can see. So you could throw a dagger at a monster right there if you wanted to. It doesn't say you can't. It'd be kind of a waste because it's only 1 die. You might as well just attack him. I mean, with your bare fists or a dagger in your hand, it's the same. But here, if you didn't have a weapon, you couldn't attack the guy, right? You couldn't hit him. But you could throw a dagger at him. It doesn't say you can't. Unless you as Zargon say, nah, it's those 8 squares again. So, and the same way with a magical throwing dagger. So there's just little things that people wonder about with the rules. I'll probably do a video. I should do a video sometime of just like how I interpret the rules, my homebrew stuff. I mean, I've done some of it, but just different things that I've learned over time. Because a lot of things, you know, you just kind of assume it's that way, but then you start talking to people and they're like, no, I don't do that way at all. It makes you think, well, maybe I was misreading it all this time. But I'm still going to do it that way because that's the way I've always played it. It's fun. So I don't mind if I'm at someone else's table and they give me a different interpretation of the rules. Like, sure, I'll play it that way. You know, I might share that I do it differently, but, you know, I'll respect that they have the authority to declare it so. When we're playing. And the companion app, I like the companion app because a lot of the rules it doesn't enforce. So you kind of get to decide when you're playing. Like, you can incorporate your own interpretation of the rules, your own homebrew stuff in there very easily in a lot of areas because it doesn't enforce it. So when it's time for the monsters to roll defense, you have to roll it physically. It's not computerized. So if you want to incorporate some bonus or disadvantage, you can. If you want to just say, yeah, the monster can't block that attack, he just doesn't. You can just click the, you know, killed button and he's dead. You know, stuff like that. Or this monster would normally be out of range. You decide he is in range. You know, you get to make that call. Or certain spells, like what does the spell actually do? Well, you can decide because there isn't an automated function. There isn't a scripted way of using that spell. It just says refer to the card, so you could decide, yeah, the spell does this. You know, the only thing is you can't, on the companion app, you can't place the monsters yourself. They just move automatically, although you can use the bone wand to move skeletons around, but that's the only exception. So I like the companion app in that it gives you a lot of freedom, a lot of leeway, even if you're playing with the app, which, I mean, the quests never change, so you play the same quest twice, it's going to be exactly the same. But even with that, it's like you could be playing by yourself or maybe without Zargon, and you can just incorporate a lot of your own stuff in it. even the European rules fairly easily. So I like that. So anyway, I'm looking forward to these new quest packs. It's great to hear that. Thank you to all the people who reported it. I know I kind of got off track talking about other things, but it's been fun doing a Hero Quest discussion. Shout out to anybody who's watching us, Solar1927 and VL Mercy. And if there's any bots in there, we're going to get them banned. Don't worry. But thanks for joining us, in Hero Quest fans. Yeah, definitely check out the news. There is a thread on Yield In talking about this. I posted it up as soon as I could, but again, I'm like really late posting this because this was 5 days ago. So I just got so wrapped up in Rise of the Dread Moon news, I completely missed this. So we got Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment this year, Path of the Wandering Monk early next year, and Against the Ogre Horde sometime 2024 probably. And after that, who knows? Will we get the Dwarf Quest Pack and the Wizard Quest Pack? Will we get any of the, like the Marvel Winter Special or the Dave Morris quests or Dark Company? I think those would be good candidates for just re-releasing them as digital online free quests to kind of sweeten the deal to get people to buy Hero Quest, and then maybe focus on these plastic and tile heavy releases as official expansions that you buy. That's just my take on it, but good to hear. And I think what Against the Ogre Horde will do is it will show that they do have the capacity to easily convert the European stuff, and so Wizards of Morkar would be no big deal. Dark Company would be no big deal. And the way Prophecy of Telor looks will kind of give us a thought on how Spirit Queen's Torment could be. But I think for sure Spirit Queen's Torment will have the Bard in there, and some doors, and the Alchemist Shop cards, and probably some spell scrolls as artifacts, but beyond that we don't know. Prophecy of Telor may or may not have some new tiles, some doors, cards, but what else? Golden opportunity to include those stretch goal minis. Hey, thanks, Solar1927, and thank you for confirming you're not a bot. I know, it's like I get super paranoid. It's like, oh, I thought you were my friend. It's like you're a bot. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Yeah, even though I was really tired and didn't want to do it, this kind of gave me some energy. So you guys keep me going, keep me excited about these projects and things. And there'll be some things to look for and kind of pick their brains about at Gen Con. And I mean, at worst, they'll just say, no, can't tell you right now. Just keep watching the skies for information. So, yeah. Because Spirit Queen's Torment, again, if I were to give my review right now of Rise of the Dread Moon, I'd say awesome. But bearing in mind that I haven't actually played it, I'm just basing it on what the quests look like. I would say the same thing for Prophecy of Telor, because I haven't played it. I've only read the quest book. Spirit Queen's Torment didn't seem as cool as Prophecy of Telor, but it had cool gimmicks, and I use gimmicks in a good way. Both of them had some typos and some issues, but I mean, those can be easily fixed. And those are the type of problems that Zargon would figure out on the fly anyway. Like, he might be silent for like 30 seconds. Oh, okay. And then he just makes the call. But they could tighten those up. This Path of the Wandering Monk, who knows what it would be. If it would just be another character, I'm all for that. That's great. If they're actually going to make a quest pack with that character, that could be cool. I'm picturing, how the Guardian Knights, they had a big crowd of knights. You had some of them with like a blindfold on, or one that was an orc, or, men, women, different mixtures of like hairstyles and heights, but they're all Guardian Knights with the helmet off. You could do the same with monks, maybe with the habit, the hood down, it's a different face, a different character. You could imagine whoever you want in that role. Even if they only give you 1 or 2 miniatures as examples. It could be a brother, it could be a sister, whatever. But yeah, is it going to be like a Shaolin fighting monk, or more of like a friar type character? I think either way it could be interesting. Or they could give you both in the same package. Solar1927 says, I'm still waiting to get my copy of Dread Moon. Supposed to arrive this week, so catching up on some painting while I wait. Yeah, no problem. I'm with you there. I really lucked out. I didn't pre-order. I didn't even order. I just called GameStop, and it's like, do you have this game? Yeah, we've got it. So I showed up like the next day, like shortly after they opened. It's like, it's right there behind you on the counter. I'll buy it. It's like, sure. It's like, thank you. Brought it home. It's like, it's all good. Looks awesome. So yeah, the next couple Saturdays. So we've got 2 Saturdays to try to finish uh, the Frozen Horror. But even if we don't get it done for a while, I mean, that's okay. And the suggestion was, well, maybe we could use in the future, once we get our playtest finished, because I didn't get to do that Thursday, start doing like a Thursday game and a Saturday game, or a Friday game and a Saturday game. We could have two different things running at once, in a sense. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be like, okay, we got to wait a whole year to play our next adventure. But I don't think Rise of the Dread Moon is going to take 7 months to play, because the quests are like 40 to like in the 40s and 60s of monster body points, rather than like 80 to 100 or more than 100. Like I think the Frozen Horror gives you some quests where there's like 120 monster body points in a quest, which is like that's guaranteed 4 hours at least. And most of our streams we don't get started on time, we get started later, and so we maybe get 2 solid hours of gaming in, and still it takes us like 4 sessions to complete a group quest. So those are some long quests, but I don't think Rise of the Dread Moon is going to be that long, unless I'm spending a lot of time like re-explaining how like the alchemy works or how the tokens work or whatever. But I can see that being a good time. But I mean, if we just took a break and said, well, we're going to play Mage of the Mirror next, which I know some people want to do that, that's going to take us 7 months, like virtually guaranteed. Thank you, Comrade Polsky. So VL Mercy wasn't real. Ah, oh, I feel betrayed. You betray me. Thanks, Polsky. Yeah, so and that's another reason to stream frequently, because we can catch some of these bots and get them banned. But yeah, so anyway, any other thoughts? Anybody in the chat have any questions? I mean, I shout out to the owners of Isle of Gaming and Viking Hobby, who are very helpful on the phone. I mean, they didn't get themselves into trouble. They were really cool, and they both basically expressed the idea that, you know, Hasbro does what they do. They're limited to what the distributors do. Support your local game store wherever you happen to be. Find a good deal, increase that gaming community, and that's a good sentiment. So obviously they want you to shop at their store, but if you're not in the same state, it's kind of hard. It's probably a lot cheaper just to buy from wherever is nearby. All right, thanks everybody. Catch us next time on HeroQuest Fans, twitch.tv/HeroQuest Fans. Saturday we'll be doing our usual stream with Gen Con. So August 2nd through the 7th I'll be off, so I won't be doing any streams. It's a possibility. What I'm picturing is at the end of the evening, like when we're back at the hotel, that would be the opportunity, if we're not too tired, to upload pictures or text, from whatever we find out, put it on YouTube. So XSC3, Home of HeroQuest Fans, that's how we'll be reporting, because it's all guerrilla reporting. But as far as like doing like a live stream, like live from the convention, I mean, that would require me to get like a burner phone and do all this stuff. I'm not sure if that's going to be feasible in my budget, or I'd have to learn how to use it and all that stuff in time. But we'll see what can happen. Maybe one of my friends would be willing to help out with that. But anyway, we'll report whatever news we can, and you'll probably get it from other sources way before we do, because there'll be people like live tweeting, I'm sure, at the convention. But we'll give it to you from the perspective of just an ordinary fan who isn't part of any, partnership deal or anything. No budget, low budget. That's how it'll be. So yeah, I have all kinds of questions now for them. And I guess as time goes by, we'll learn more. But this is how we've found out about Frozen Horror. I mean, it was from a local game shop. There it was, that first idea that it was actually coming out. So it begins. Welcome to HeroQuest Fans. Participate in the Twitch live stream if I'm not controlling a hero. Go down to your chat in the Twitch page at the bottom. Mine is unlimited, but yours will show a certain number of gold coins here, channel points. I want to click here, and it doesn't cost real money. If you're a subscriber or a follower, you get more. You get a multiplier. But anyway, look at these options here. So you can use your gold coins to influence the stream various ways. So you can get a bonus monster for Zargon if you're trying to help the bad guys. You can buy a potion for the hero to help the good guys. We got chaos cards, skill cards, bonus treasure searches, reshuffling the deck, threat cards for Zargon, and fun stuff. Buy mercenaries. And of course, Zargon has the final say. And it's a fun way to participate, even if you're only going to be here for